Welcome to the special Analyst edition of CXWise, where we share wisdom, insights, stories, and expertise from the world of customer experience. I'm your host, Nathan Bennett, and you're about to hear real-world experiences and practical advice that will elevate your CX game no matter your title and no matter your industry. So, without further ado, let's get wise. Friends, I am so excited for my guest today. I have known her for years, have been inspired by her, challenged by her, and she usually leaves me laughing from my gut. She is on the unquestionable Mount Rushmore of analysts. It is Sheila McGee-Smith, President and Principal Analyst at McGee-Smith Analytics. Sheila has spent more than 30 years in the communications industry, including 12 years as an industry analyst with the Polaris Group. Early in her career, she held sales management, market research, and product management positions at AT&T, Timeplex, and Dun & Bradstreet. Sheila serves as the Contact Center Track Chair for Enterprise Connect, and she is my guest sitting in the chair with me today from Source 24 at Sprinklr HQ in New York City. Hi, Sheila. How are you, my friend?
I am fantastic. New York City is
so
my
good to
hometown. So happy to be here.
Yeah. I used to be my hometown for 5 years or so, and then I got a little weak in the knees and had to go to the more relaxed Washington, D.C., where nothing important ever happens, right? Just a chill time.
I should have said I'm a native New Yorker. I currently live in the chill of New Hampshire.
Okay,
I too don't want to live that every day.
Listen, you got it easy.
Yeah, I like the energy
hanging out
in
in New Hampshire. Is there anything that you see as like one of the biggest disruptors in customer service coming around the corner?
Maybe AI? No.
Okay. Maybe you think so?
So, you and I know that AI has been in the customer experience business 10 or 15 years, right? Natural language processing is probably the first step that we took as a business. But generative AI just changed the equation. I mean, it just rose, the visibility of AI rose from a consumer and a business leader perspective, right? Before that, it was something that, we techies might know was going to move the needle in terms of customer experience. But then suddenly everybody knew, and expectations very high. And so companies that had been building AI, who had the technical PhDs, who had the research labs, and were able to bring in GenAI on top of a baseline, really had an advantage. And Raji was in that position with Sprinklr, right? He had the AI baseline and was able to quickly deploy GenAI on top of that to get the advantages. So, I mean, clearly GenAI in the last 2 years has just really made a dramatic change.
And what are some of the things that you're seeing GenAI being plugged into specifically in the contact center space that's new, like not exactly from 10 years ago? What's happening now in the contact center space with GenAI that's really shooting up the CX improvements?
So there's two areas, right, where GenAI is going to make an impact. One is in automating interactions, and then the other is in augmenting agents, helping them do their jobs better, right? And I think the first place that we've seen it take off is in agent augmentation. So what does that mean? 20, 30 years ago, we thought screen pop was the sexiest thing ever, right? Oh, you mean she knows who I am before I tell her? She has my account number, right? Agent Assist using AI and GenAI takes that to a new level. I call up my airline of choice and say, I'm planning a trip around the world. I'm interested in talking about an around the world ticket. Okay? How often does an agent hear that sentence? Not very often. How equipped are they to start talking about the various ways that you do that and some of the constraints and the rules about it? But if GenAI is real-time transcribing and then going to the knowledge base and presenting to an agent, this is how to talk to your customer about it in this order. Start here, ask them this, bridge here, bridge there. Suddenly, it's a much more seamless conversation instead of, hold on, can I put you on hold for 3 minutes? Let me see if I can transfer you back, So that can make a very dramatic change. And the companies that have started deploying it are seeing that, right? So I think agent augmentation is the first place. And why? Why wasn't it more automation? Because GenAI is not perfect. There are hallucinations. You want a human in that loop. And agents are the right human, right? They know how to do this. They know customer experience. So if something comes up that's not quite right or something you don't say to a customer, they can add their human intelligence into that loop and pivot, right? Which isn't to say the automation's not happening. But it's the agent augmentation, I think, that contact center management is more comfortable deploying first, right? And to your initial question, very different than just NLP. It's using natural language processing, but for very different reasons than we did in the past.
So I'm not sure how well you know your Marvel characters, but there's a character called Iron Man. You familiar with Iron Man? Zero?
I know he exists.
All right. So here's the thing with Iron Man. So you have this human. He's the right human, and his name is Tony Stark. And he's a brilliant guy. He's an inventor. He is a mega billionaire, right? And he's the guy that's inside of this very, very high-tech suit. And when he's inside that suit, the technology is augmenting his natural human abilities. It's making him stronger. He can fly. He's got all kinds of gadgets on there. He's got little screens in his helmet where he can see everything about his opponent and assess how he, assess a threat or assess weaknesses, right? So to me, that's how I think about agent augmentation. You've got this superhero that's at the core, and they're being bolstered in their ability to provide that customer experience by this technology that's around them. And as that technology heightens and gets stronger, just like Iron Man, we're better suited to fight the battles that our end customers are facing and be able to slay whatever dragon they are, because suddenly we're bolstering their natural abilities. Now, something's missing when you take one of those two pieces apart. When you take the human away from that, there's a hollowness to it. And we can always kind of tell when there's no human behind it. But those two things going together, I think, are super, super important for customer experiences. And, I can always tell when someone has the right tools. Whenever I call a contact center, I can tell if they have the right tools, because I know what those tools are. I know what's out there. But I also feel it in the experience I'm either having or not having with them. So I don't know, whenever I hear of agent augmentation, I think of the superhero that's being bolstered by this powerful technology around them. So listen, I think you need to read up on your Iron Man. Okay. I think I think we've identified an opportunity here, and the next blog post that you write should be specifically about superheroes and the contact center. Okay, I'm giving you that for free, Sheila.
Yeah,
okay?
Do not hold your breath.
All right,
I would
fair
be
enough.
more likely to have a Broadway musical theme than I would have a Marvel theme.
Okay.
Yes.
Are you going to catch any shows while you're in New York City?
Not this time, but I typically do. I'm a big fan.
Okay, me too. Dittos. We can talk offline more about that. We can nerd out about that too.
Okay.
I'm not just a comic book geek, Sheila. I'm also a theater geek. So I'm a Swiss Army knife of geekdom. No one thing defines me.
Understood.
I wanted to talk about the digital twin that Sprinklr has introduced into this event. I'm interested to hear about your experiences with the digital twin. Have you been able to tinker around with it a little bit? And then are you seeing that kind of technology pop up in other brands? And what are you seeing in terms of adoption with companies with those that kind of capability?
In terms, I think when you say how are customers using it, companies using it, it's such early days. I I think of the way that Sprinklr is using the term digital twin as an umbrella term for a combination of automated interactions and human assisted interactions, right? Meaning I might ask, I did ask that twin to do something, right? And I knew that a human would have to be required. And I wondered how the twin would handle it, the twin that they had set up for this meeting. And they did the right thing. They said, we will reach out to this person to accomplish this task. But if you want to, you can also reach out to her on this email address. And that was great. So I don't want to say, everything. So that's exactly what it should do. It should give me an answer if it is one that can be given from the information it has, from the knowledge base it has, or it should hand it off to the appropriate human to take it to the next step, if a next step is required. I don't think big brands, brands that are customers of Sprinklr on the social side, for example, are ready to let loose a digital twin on their websites yet. I mean, I think we're, early days there. And I think part of it is some of the early failures, not necessarily even GenAI ones, but even before that. Microsoft, I don't want to use the name, but, let out a bot of some kind that, went down some ugly paths very quickly.
Right.
It had to be shut down, right? And so people are more scared because of those failures. That one failure is worth 1,000 successes in terms of influencing people. But digital twin, the way that Sprinklr is using it, is visionary. It's thought leadership, and that's what companies in our space should be doing. Right, telling us what is possible. It's like the art of the possible. And given that message, I as a brand can decide, okay, how does that fit into how I think about my customers, how my customers want to interact with me, and how do I morph that idea into something that works for my company? So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And I think that's over, 2 or 3 years. It encapsulates, digital twin encapsulates an assistant for a person, an assistant for a team, an assistant for a brand, right? You know that. So there's 3 different levels. For a person, I think it's ready, right? For certain titles. For teams, I think companies could be prepared to deploy it, right? For the sales team, right? And we've always sort of wanted that. You're my salesperson, Nate. You're on vacation or you're sick. I want the person that you want me to talk to next for that interaction to be routed to. I don't want to go to your voicemail. I want to go to your designated person, right? So I think those use cases will be the first. At the brand level, it's an exciting concept, but I think it'll take some time.
That's interesting. No, I appreciate your perspective and your candor on that, especially. I have one last question about the contact center. What do you think CCaaS providers get wrong about the experience of the employees in the contact center? Is there something that CCaaS providers just don't understand or are missing, or maybe are not providing the right tools in the right way? Because when you talk to those agents, you really understand by and large, you understand their heart. You understand that they're there because they want to help. The best of them do. they're folks who the key to that job, I think, is empathy and patience and things that you can't be taught necessarily. And they are thrown so many tools to use and to implement and expected to become expert at these things. And obviously, Sprinklr is trying to unify all those things onto to one platform, to streamline, to make it seamless, easier, more human. But I'm wondering if, from your perspective, there's still some kind of opportunity or something we're missing as CCaaS technology providers.
So interestingly enough, I don't think there's anything necessarily that we're missing. I think the gap exists between what we as a CCaaS industry have created and what companies have had the time and budget to implement. So I very distinctly remember a customer care leader talking about their vendor and what was available from their vendor. And she said, in a perfect world, I would implement it all, right? And it would all work together, and I would be able to deliver really good service. But I can't do that today. I don't. I have equipment that has to be deprecated over time, that we have investment in, that can't be replaced. But having chosen a vendor, I now have a path, right? So as I chose where I can make changes, maybe that's going to be in workforce engagement management. Maybe that's going to be in the conversational AI that I choose. Hopefully what companies are doing is what she talked about. I've chosen a vendor who I think will cover the landscape for me, and I will be able to walk with them and get to that point where everything is together. So I don't, if every contact center manager was able to implement what they want to implement, agents would be happier. But there's always a gap, right, between what's available. And think back to the days of CTI, right? Mm-hmm. When every time you called an agent, they asked you your name and your account number and everything else. And we're like, don't you have CTI? Customer, computer telephony integration. Don't you have that? And as we know, maybe 20, 25% of contact centers actually deployed it. And now we have better technologies. How many have deployed Agent Assist? I mean, clearly we're at under 1% right now.
Sure.
So it's not a gap of technology. It's a gap of deployment and implementation.
That's really, really, really interesting. So how do I then prioritize what the pieces of a platform or what features of a platform I'm going to invest in first? If that's the limitation, then how do I put what's most important? How do I decide what's most important to implement the fastest?
Well, you and I both know that and this is Sheila's number, if there are 15 million agents in the world, right? 15 million people who do this for a living with agent licenses from contact center vendors, 11 million of them are still working on premises-based equipment. Right? Wow. Equipment that is 10 plus years old. Yeah. And so very often the presenting reason to make that choice of a platform that will take you forward is because that equipment is falling over, right? It has to be replaced. So it's a great opportunity to make that choice because many of the CCaaS vendors, and like Sprinklr, have a fuller customer experience portfolio. So hopefully you're not just making a CCaaS decision, you're making a CX decision. So, I mean, that's really very often the presenting cause. Other presenting causes are our volume is increasing dramatically. It's very seasonal or spiky. I need automation alternatives. I think back to the pandemic and state unemployment offices, okay? Used to getting, 20, 30,000 calls a month or something. suddenly getting 1 million a day,
Yeah.
right, in certain states, and impossible to address that kind of a need without some sort of automated solution. And so, many of the states, as you know, put that kind of solution in place. So it's got to be the business need that drives the choice. So I don't think that, other than, I think, the move from prem to cloud, premises-based to cloud-based contact center equipment, it's going to be based on the business needs and the business outcomes that you need.
I love that you said, don't make a CCaaS decision, make a CX decision. I love that. And that's going to be on the bumper sticker from this episode. I guarantee you. And we'll attribute it to you. Don't worry. Well, Sheila, listen, we have taken up so much of your time already. You've been very generous. I really appreciate you taking some time to sit down with us and share your wisdom, insights, and expertise. You've made us all a little CX wiser. As always, I really appreciate chatting with you, my friend, and have a great rest of your week at Source 24 in New York City. Thanks so much, Sheila.
You're welcome, Nate. Have a great day.
You too, buddy.